Hello and welcome to another video. Let's talk about emergency funds. So, what are emergency funds? Why should we have them? Let's get started. An emergency fund is basically a pot of money that you have stashed away for easy access for unexpected situations, such as if you're unemployed, your car breaks down, your washing machine breaks down, your fridge breaks down. It's as it says on the tin, it's for an emergency. It's not for holidays, it's not to go Ibiza and party, it's for when you need it. The reason why you should have an emergency fund is because it prevents relying on borrowing money. You see, say an unexpected emergency happens, like your car breaks down, and you don't have the funds. What are you going to do? You're going to need money to fix your car, or else how are you going to get to work? How are you going to take your kids to school? See, if you're dependent on that car, you need the money. So you're going to either have to take a loan from the bank to get the money, or if your credit history and credit rating is poor and you're denied a loan from the bank, then you might have to borrow from your family, which might or might not be embarrassing. No judgment here. Or worst comes, you're gonna have to borrow from loan sharks, and you do not want to borrow from loan sharks. Absolutely no. That is a terrible idea. And if you do borrow, then you're gonna have to pay that money back plus interest, and the interest is going to be adding up. And if you don't pay that back, or if you're unable to pay it back, then the interest is just going to add and add and add, and it's going to snowball to a ridiculous amount. So having an emergency fund for those emergency stops you from having to borrow money from the bank, from members of your family or friends, or from those terrible loan sharks. Apparently, according to a nationwide study, 11.5 million people in the UK have savings under £100. And as I mentioned before, lack of savings leads you to borrow money when you need it, which means you're going to go into debt, which means you're going to have to repay that debt back while you have no money, and then you're going to have to pay interest on that debt. And if you get money from loan sharks, you're going to have to deal with nasty people on top of your debt. So that's the reason why having an emergency fund is very important. But some people, and I guess some videos, argue that instead of having that money sit around, you should invest it, because by investing it, you're making your money work for you. And if you just have it sitting around, then you're losing money to inflation, which is a fair point. But the thing is, you shouldn't really have an emergency fund sitting in your current account. You shouldn't have an emergency fund sitting on your mattress in your pocket. You should have that emergency fund in a high interest savings account, so at least the minimum it's keeping up with inflation. Now, the advantage of having an emergency fund versus just investing it into the stock market or anywhere else your investments are going to go into is that it prevents you from having to sell your investments when an emergency does happen, and that will potentially prevent you from losing money. Because say your emergency happens when the market has a downturn and your investments go down. Now you're going to have to sell off some of your investments to pay for your emergency, which basically means you've taken an L right there. But if you had an emergency fund laying around, you don't have to touch your investments. You can let them do what they do. Go up, go down, ride the waves, and in 5-10 years they come out on top. Most of the time they do. And not to mention the psychological benefits of having an emergency fund. Having an emergency fund empowers you. It gives you financial freedom and choice. If you have, say, 3 months or 6 months of emergency fund build up, and for whatever reason you don't feel like working, well, you can take a month, 2, or even 3 off. And if you do somehow lose your job, it provides peace of mind and reduces stress, knowing that you don't have to take any job that comes your way. You can take your time to find a job that you really like and that suits you. On average, it takes about 3 months for people to find the correct employment for them. So how many months or how much money should you have in an emergency fund? Typically, you should have enough money to cover your living expenses for 3 months, and that's living expenses, not luxury. So your rent or mortgage, your food bill, your utility bill, your water, and I guess essential transportation can be put in there, but not have nothing else. Not going to parties, not watching movies, not going to Ibiza, none of that stuff. Just the pure essentials. Now, where should you store your emergency fund? Definitely not in your pocket or in the mattress. Some people will store money in their mattress. You shouldn't have it in your current account because inflation will eat away at it. You should invest it in 2 places. Well, I say invest. I meant to say you should store it in 2 places. But the word investment can also be used as well, because the main objective of the emergency fund is for it to maintain purchasing power against inflation. So ideally, we need to match inflation. Obviously, if we beat it, even better, but we have to match it. The emergency fund has to also be accessible because it's an emergency fund. We need it in an emergency, so we have to easily be able to access it. So the 2 best options are high interest savings accounts or government bonds. The reason why I say government bonds is because government bonds are pretty much one of the safest bonds that you can get, because it's backed by the government. So the fact that you're going to lose your money is very, very slim. Now, to build up your emergency fund, make your life a bit easy, set up a direct debit payment into a savings account. So every time you get paid, put aside whatever you can, £50, £100, £150, however much you can put aside, and let that build up to a 3 months expense coverage, so that you have a pot of money that can cover you for 3 months if shit hits the fan. Not only will it give you peace of mind, you won't have to dip into your investments if an emergency does happen. So that was the video. Take a shot every single time I said emergency fund. You probably get pissed at your mind. If you did find this video helpful, then comment down below, subscribe, give it a like, and yeah, take care.